Oh, the transfer window delivers. Just never in the way we really want as today's meltdown begins. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal Transfer Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you, of course, all of you for being here in the live show and in the live chat as well. And those of you listening, of course, on catch up, these shows go up on iTunes and Spotify as well after I finish being live every morning on YouTube. But if you want to watch it first, want to watch it with the chat, want to watch it in our community, then YouTube is, of course, the place to be. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Those joining us live this morning, we've got Shari and Amesy and Paul. We've got GZ4. We've got Oslo, Gooner and Julian. We've got Matthew. We've got Angela. Oyabode in the chat box. Wilson, Paul, Nifty Legend. We've got, who else have we got scrolling in the chat? Everyone gets into kind of conversations by the time I actually get to the chat box as well. We've got Julian and Athman in the chat. Jerome, Answer. Rob, Keith, good morning to you, to Arthur, to Leroy, to Darbas, good morning to Abu, and plenty more of you guys and girls in the chat box that I can see too. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I can feel maybe a phone-in coming on. We'll see how it goes. But we got a lot to talk about this morning, and of course, plenty to talk to you about in the chat box. So let's not waste any more time. Please do, if you haven't done so already, drop a like on the video. We try and reach 1,000 likes on the show every single day. If you haven't done so already, it takes you just a second. You just have to click that little thumbs up. I'm talking to you. Click that thumbs up button. And make sure you're helping us on our way to 1K every single day. If you're on iTunes, of course, you can leave a written review or a 5-star review. And you can, of course, do that on Spotify just with the 5 stars as well. Really would appreciate it. It does help us out. But if you leave a bad review, it doesn't matter anyway. It helps us anyways. But it's just any review helps. But good ones, well, they make me feel warm and fuzzy inside. And bad ones, they justify what we're doing here. Good morning to you all, though. Let's jump into today's stories, shall we? And talk about some of the discussions on offer. 17 fans have been banned after a new round of action has been taking place at the Emirates and online by the club, in what is definitely good news as the fight against abuse both in the stadium and online as well continues, but is diminishing. It is a good thing that this is on the way down. In 22-23, 31 fans were banned. In 23-24, 24 fans were banned. And now in 24-5, we've seen 17 fans this time banned. So we're on this downward trend, on a downward slope, which is good. But there was 11 in-stadium offences ranging from assault to racism to antisocial behaviour. You can read the full details, of course, of all of that on the Arsenal website and what they were. And there were also 6 online offences that were identified, and those relative memberships, of course, as well, saw those supporters also banned as well, which is obviously very, very, very good news. It's not good that this thing is happening, but it's good that we can finally get some consequences for these horrible people. 3 death threats were sent that were identified and actioned, 2 cases of homophobia and 1 case of abuse in terms of those online offences as well. Really good news that continuing the fight against those that feel it is appropriate and fine to send horrible things on the internet or do horrible things in person, there are indeed consequences for those that are unfortunately engaging in such horrible acts. But it's good to know that those people can know that there are consequences on their way should you be identified. And of course, just before we go on to that next story, I should say, if you are in the stadium for whatever reason and you want to report something, you just need to use the anonymous see something, say something service by texting foul to 67777 and a description of the incident, the location of where it is, such as the block, row and seat number. The service protects supporters' anonymity should they feel uncomfortable, of course, approaching a steward, which you can also do if you feel comfortable enough to do so. But there is the information if you would like to do so. Look forward to seeing more action taken by the club as well. Saka has been speaking to the press and has explained why he has been so impressed with Victor Gyokeres, speaking in the after-action report of the game against Manchester United. He said, I was impressed with him, and he battled for us. It was tough, and there was a big battle up there. I thought he did well. His performance gives us something to build on, and I'm sure it will help him next week. He has slotted in well. Now, I think overall we would probably say that Gyokeres hasn't had the best start in terms of Premier League games. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't bad. It wasn't what fans wanted to see. But he clearly is very much a key part of this team, and the players are impressed by what he is doing, which is really, really important as well. So very, very good news that Saka and the team have been impressed by him, and that hopefully he can turn around next week, of course, and improve on things even further. Maybe get a goal or two. Now, Porto are said to be keen on signing Jakub Kiwior. We've known this for a little while, and there was an offer earlier on in the summer that was turned down. We talked about that on the channel quite some time ago. But Jakub Kiwior still on the radar of a lot of clubs. Some colleagues of the Evening Standard reporting there's interest in Germany as well, and Italy, of course, as we've reported here. And that Porto remain a key interested party, as, of course, reported for Fabrizio Romano yesterday. But Arsenal do see the player still as an important part of their squad and will only be letting him leave for a significant sale. So Arsenal need to get quite the fee if they are to move Kiwior on. He was not in the squad for the game against Manchester United. We've got a lot of players in our books right now. Some do need to leave because there is far, far, far too many in the group. 8, of course, left out of the squad for the game against Manchester United, including Max Dowman in those 8 as well. But the big headline story of the day, and what has got people somewhat riled, and by the way, none of you in the chat box have a clue what his wage is right now. I can see so many numbers flying about. But no one knows as of yet what this is. Hopefully we'll get clarity on it. Those that might have got it right by their guesses, you still don't know. We don't know. But until we do know, there's no point really speculating on what the wage of Trossard's brand new contract, of course, which is not an extension. It's just a renewal and an improvement of his terms. James McNicholas of The Athletic reporting this exclusively yesterday, that Arsenal have agreed a wage increase with Leandro Trossard to renew terms on his current deal. The player has supposedly rejected interest from top clubs. There's been suggestions that the likes of Bayern Munich have been interested in signing Leandro Trossard this summer. We know there was interest from Turkey and, of course, from other clubs as well, but most notably Bayern Munich, with a team that was said to be most keen of those elite sides that were interested in Trossard. But instead of making a switch this summer, he has indeed agreed that new improvement of his terms. It is thought that these new wages put him more in line with, of course, the stature of the position he holds within the group. Arsenal have a lot of high earners, of course, who start regularly. Trossard's played 50-odd games last season. And so, of course, that is the wage bracket that he would fall into if Arsenal were to give him a wage increase. But we don't know what the actual figures are right now. Nobody does. So don't fall into any traps of reading any numbers and starting to believe them until we get more clarity on that, which is always difficult because wages are one of the most inaccurately and most broadly reported things out there that we never really kind of get too much clarity on. We can kind of get estimates, and there are some websites that make claims about things, but again, we don't really know. But the question mark around this deal is, of course, what this has in terms of an impact on Arsenal's business for the rest of the window. Will it have an impact on Arsenal's business? Does this mean Arsenal are done regarding incomings? I sincerely hope. I will be very disappointed if Arsenal don't find that third attacking player that we've all known for some time that they've wanted to sign between now and the end of the window. It's very frustrating, I think, that we could see Arsenal not sign a third attacking player. And for me, it wouldn't make the window a failure. I don't go that far. I think that's ludicrous. But it would certainly put kind of a bit of an incomplete feeling about what we could have done, especially when you see the business, of course, done by your rivals. You want to try and chase them. You want to think that you've done everything you can to really chase those teams, to chase those clubs, to try and close that gap. But there would be a sense, I think, if we don't get someone else in after this decision, that we hadn't done everything that we could. Now, as mentioned before, we do need to try and get those players off the books. And there is financial pressure in regards to UEFA FFP as well. Why we would renew Trossard's deal, why you would put him onto an improved contract is a good question. I don't know. I can theorize why we've done it. There's a number of theories why we've done it, and there must be a good reason for it. Otherwise, why do it? You know? So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking and I'm trying to come up with the explanation as to why. I saw some people suggest that this was kind of already kind of a pre-agreed thing in the past, and that if he was to stay to this stage and still be a key part of the team, there had kind of been a understanding that he would go up in wage. I don't know if that's true. That's just what some people have theorized, potentially, but we don't know that, so don't quote me. The other is that after 3 years at the club, having, of course, contributed as a key starting figure in the team, having helped establish Arsenal, of course, into the positions that they are, that he deserves to fall in line with other players that are on higher wages. There is an element of motivation. How much of this contract is motivated around output? How much of the wage itself is brought about by goals and appearances? And is it motivated around those accomplishments and achievement motivated contract? Again, that could be the case. So looking at that specific element of the contract is the only real way I can make sense of it. However, it doesn't mean that it's been a good idea still. And I think it's something that's worth questioning. I think it's something that's worth asking. What I would say is that over the last 2 seasons, it's not a question who has been better between Trossard or Martinelli. Trossard in the last 2 seasons has been better than Martinelli. In 23-24, he scored 17 goals. Last season, he got 10 goals and 10 assists, got to 20 goal contributions for the season. Martinelli didn't get that, for the record. I think he got half that. In fact, if my maths is right, my memory serves me well. And I think we talked about this at the start of the summer, and we had a bit of a debate about this, and I said, if one of the 2 wingers was to leave and Arsenal were to sign a left winger, who would I rather stay? Who would I rather sell? My answer was Martinelli. I'd rather sell, get the big money on Martinelli now, get a great winger in, and have Trossard as the number 2. That was what I wanted. That was what wasn't particularly popular amongst fans when I said it. I know that Martinelli has a big cult following behind him, but that was my preference. If one of them had to go and we were to sign a left winger, what would I prefer? I would have preferred Trossard to stay because I think he is more impactful. I think he gives us more from the bench. I think he gives us more quality. I think he gives us more consistent goal contributions than Martinelli does. But the problem is that it looks like that both of them are going to stay. And at the moment, there isn't really a feeling that we're going to go out and sign another wide player. And that's a frustration. That for me is a frustration. And so we're going to go to a phone-in. But the phone-in question is going to be as follows. If this is the end of Arsenal's summer, let's ignore the potential sales. Let's say hypothetically your Lokongas, your Nelsons, so on and so forth, that the surplus players leave. Say this is it. 5 players brought in, Trossard renewed, Skelly renewed, Gabriel renewed, Wineri renewed. 5 players brought in. The question I have is, why is it a failure? And I only want to hear phone-ins and calls from people who think that it is a failure, categorically. I don't want you phoning in and telling me why you don't think it is a failure, because that's how I feel. It doesn't induce a good debate. I want people to phone in only if they feel that it is a failure, and I need you to explain to me why it is a failure. So the link is now in the chat box. The link is there. You can phone in. You need to be over the age of 18. Of course, you need a webcam. You need a quiet place to record. But we're going to go to part 2, and we'll see if anyone can phone in and tell me why this window is categorically 100% a failure. Let's go to part 2 and more right after. Okay, this is part 2. Oh, hold on. Is my camera frozen? I don't think it has. Maybe it hasn't. I've somehow lost connect or somehow lost sound, but on my end anyway. So potentially I might need to refresh. We go. That microphone should be back now. Is that correct? Elliot below, can you give me a thumbs up if I'm fine? It looks like it is. Good stuff. Okay, that's weird how that happens sometimes. I don't know why it does, but it does. Okay, right, let's go into the phone-ins. I'm going to do that in just a second. I think the camera is frozen, so we're just going to give a quick refresh and we'll be right back. So give me 2 seconds, please. Okay, that should, I think, have fixed things. Fingers crossed. So let's jump into the chat box or jump into the comment section. By the way, I can see a couple of people have tuned in from their car. You cannot phone in if you're driving. You will need to pull over if you want to talk. Let's go to Wilson first, who was first on my call. So Wilson, mate, how are you? How are you good? How are you doing, man? You well?
Good morning, Tom. I'm doing good. How you doing?
Not bad, mate. Not bad. Tell me why this window is a failure.
I mean, it feels. My reaction says it all. Really,
that's the noise this morning. Yes, that's how people are feeling.
My reaction says it just feels like, as things stand, that we are leaving ourselves short yet again, because we strengthened the other positions.
Yeah,
but everyone knew that the left-sided winger needed to be upgraded. I said this to you on the previous chat that I think to get a left-sided winger in, either Martinelli or Trossard needed to go. Well, that's not happening on Trossard because he's probably improved his own terms. The only thing that makes sense now is if Martinelli leaves, but there's no suitors for him. And when I heard the Trossard news yesterday, Tom, I was absolutely fuming. I was like, "What are we doing? what are we doing?" But I was, on the other hand, to be fair though, Trossard has done very well for us though. It's just that it's this football club, Tom. It just frustrates me at times. And
is there an element? Let me ask the question, Wilson. Is it saying it frustrates you? 5 signs: Gyokeres, Zubamendi, Mosquera, Kepa, Madueke, Dunn, contract renewals, Gabriel, Lewis Skelly, Waneri, and potentially Trossard, it seems too. Is there any argument here that being frustrated, any argument here being annoyed, down, irritated, comes across as a little bit, I want to use the word entitled?
Yeah, I would say entitled because I feel like we've done great business, like in terms of transfers. We've done great business in terms of keeping most of our key players. But the only thing that annoys me as of right now is that why is Trossard staying for and then Martinelli's not going? If those two are staying, no other left winger.
Who was the left winger that you think was realistically available and would have signed?
God, there would have been 2 options. Like one of them was Rodrigo, a dream signing, and the other one was Rodrigo and who's that guy from Atalanta? I forgot his name now.
Ademola Lookman. Yeah,
Lookman, I wouldn't mind at all. They're both brilliant players, and I'm like, look, Lookman's meant to be going to Inter Milan. That's not happened apparently because that's fallen through. Rodrigo's not played that much against Real Madrid so far in the pre-season and the new season. So I really cannot understand why the Trossard news. And then I can remember you said something, Tom, and you said that Martinelli should leave because he'll bring like the bigger money. I do get it. He's got more value than Trossard, in my opinion, in terms of fee-wise. The only thing that makes sense now is if Martinelli leaves and we bring a left-sided winger in, but I'm very doubtful about that. We're leaving ourselves short again.
Simple yes or no question now, Wilson, to round this call off. Based on what Arsenal have done, can they win the title?
I would say no at this moment in time. I would say no, simply because we're leaving ourselves short on the left-sided winger position, like quality-wise. That's the only reason. And every single Arsenal fan knows this. a striker, the right-sided winger, that's been done. The midfield's been sorted. The defense is done. The goalkeeping situation's done. The only thing that has not been addressed is the left-sided winger, because I don't feel the two options we have on the left-hand side is good enough to win the league.
I hear you. I hear you, Wilson. And I thank you for your call, mate. Thank you for your contribution. And I wish you the best for the rest of your day, man. Have a good one.
I will. Same to you, Tom.
Same to you later, mate. See you later. Lovely stuff. Always a pleasure to speak to Wilson. Elliot's up next. How you doing, man? You good, you well?
Tom, can you hear me?
I can indeed. I can indeed.
Tom, I am mildly, if not greatly pissed at my football club. What started out as a Picasso has turned into a painting you find at a garage sale.
Wow.
And it is for three reasons. Number one, our transfer business out has been abysmal. It has been catastrophic.
I would agree with
The
you.
second reason is the Eze own goal. The man is Hale End, and he wanted to come back, and we chose to turn our back on him for an 18-year-old. Let me repeat that. An 18-year-old. He did. You did, Tom. He turned back.
With this, Elliot. I'm uncomfortable with this.
Yes.
I was on board with you, like, about the Eze stuff. I'm on board with you about we should have signed him. I'm on board with you. We should have pulled whatever levers we needed to pull to get it done. But I'm uncomfortable downing on an 18-year-old.
Tom, you and I know, you being in the news, Tom, you knew that it was between Eze was an option against Wanyeri. Wanyeri signed. We pulled back away from Eze.
Yes,
what does that tell you? 18-year-old was chosen over Eze.
Yeah, but you're saying the words 18-year-old like that's some kind of slight on who is an incredibly talented player.
It is a slight.
I'm trying to protect you somewhat here, Elliot, because I'm worried that you're going to...
Because we let an 18-year-old dictate terms in our transfer window, and that should not happen. I don't care how good this guy is.
It absolutely should.
We shouldn't let an 18-year-old dictate our terms, my friend, especially when you have
for a talent as good as Ethan Wanyeri, he absolutely should be impactful on what we do.
Is he as good as Eze right now?
No, of course not.
Thank you. That's all I need to hear. We need to win now. It's a win now. We're in win now mode. We're in win now mode. And if we're not, and if that's the case, Eze's the man. It is not even an equivocation. That is the man. And he was waiting on us. It was an own goal. Let's call it that, because he said he wanted to come back to Arsenal. This was his dream. This was his club, and we chose to turn our back on him for an 18-year-old.
I'm not disagreeing with you about the own goal for Eze. I think it's an absolute slam dunk, and it's frustrating that we're not competing with Spurs for that signing, because I think absolutely we should have done. I agree with you. What I don't agree with is this idea that all of a sudden the desperation to see Eze join Arsenal and the frustration it's going to Spurs is going to see opinions like this circulate that are absolutely horrendous towards
what are we to think, Tom?
Amazing talent.
What are we to think?
We're to think that Arsenal have spent close to £200 million this summer. Haven't done. Yeah, let me finish. If you're gonna ask me.
No. Sorry, Tom. I'm sorry.
We've spent close to £200 million on what we've already done. 5 players came in at the start of the window. I said, if we sign 5 or 6, I'd be like, great. But we need that one more. And I'm not disagreeing with the point of view about Eze. I think it's a player we should have signed. However, while we have done that and put Arsenal into a position where they have minimum two options in every single role in their starting 11 squad, they cannot turn around and look at a position like Wanyeri's and say, oh, Eze's there. We're going to just move away from Nwaneri now, just so we can go in at Eze. I do not agree with that point. I do not agree with the idea of jacking in an 18-year-old talent like Nwaneri, who fans like yourself have been pining for Arteta to use and complaining about Arteta not using him at the end of last season, only then to be in a position where we might sign the likes of Eze and be like, get rid of him now because we can go and get Eze. I just don't agree with that way of working.
I'm not saying to get rid of Eze. I'm sorry, Wanyeri. I was never saying to get rid of Wanyeri. But one thing I'll have to say to Wanyeri is, sorry, you're at a big club. You're going to have to face competition.
Okay, but what if I said to you that it's one or the other? Would you have got rid of him to get Eze?
In a win now mode, yes.
So you are saying that?
Yeah, I am. It's win now.
So when you just said a second ago, I'm not saying that I would get rid of Winery for Eze.
No, but you said, don't held to my head. What would be my decision? And that would be my decision.
That's effectively
what was the situation to win. It's not time to train. It's not time. It's not time to grow and nurse. This is not a nursery. This is not the try league, Tom. It's the get it done league. You know who gets it done? Eze Everett. He gets it done
for Arsenal right now, and we're talking about a guy that we would bring into the start.
You don't think he?
No, I don't.
Okay, no.
I don't think he starts under this manager at the moment.
That's fine. That's your opinion.
No, it's not my opinion. It's based upon what I feel about what Arteta would do. And if we signed Eze would be on the bench immediately. He would be behind our starting left wingers. He would be behind Ødegaard. I personally would start Eze. But I'm coming at it from the perspective of what Arteta would do. And because the club view Eze, hence why they've not moved for him right now, because they have Ødegaard and they have Winery, they view him as a central player. And so for that money, at the moment, as we can see, Madueke is starting to come into that left-hand side. That's who Arteta views it. So this idea that we absolutely had to go and get Eze and let that brilliant talent in Winery potentially go to the wayside as a result, I can't get on board with that. I can't get on board with that at all.
Tom, this guy, Winery, unfortunately, is not going to help us win this year. He's not. If we're going to be dependent on anybody, it's going to be Ødegaard. Yes, Winery is going to come in from time to time, but he's not the game changer. He's the game changer. No matter what you say, no matter what you think, he's the game changer. He's the X factor. He's the man who can get us 10 to 15 goals in the midfield and possibly assists. I'm sorry. He's the best. He's one of the best, if not the best player outside the top six. And everybody knows it. And we've turned our back on him simply because we chose an 18-year-old. And that is the long and the short of things.
I can't get up. We're going to have to agree to disagree on that point. I think
we'll agree to disagree on that point.
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll agree to disagree.
I just think it's incredibly disappointing that the argument around Eze comes down to denigrating Winery's talent to calling him.
No, I'm not denigrating his talent. I think it's
by calling him an 18-year-old. That you're not even calling him by his name. You're calling him by his age. That is denigrating his profile.
Let me ask you this question, Tom. What would be Winery's output this season? In this season, in your heart of hearts, what would be Winery's output?
In terms of goals and assists or appearances, well, he made 37 appearances last season as a 17.
Okay, 37 appearances. Let's go goals and assists. Let's go.
So last season, let's just get the numbers correct. So we know. I think he got 9 goals last season, playing majority of games from the bench and a couple of assists. But I will double check the figures just so I'm exactly right. Last season, he scored 9 goals and got 2 assists across 37 appearances, only over 1,000 minutes. If we're to say that those 1,378 minutes are going to get close to double this season, we hope, with the rotation, with the time that we absolutely need to give him, and we're looking at that exposure being doubled. Well, if he's got 9 goals and 2 assists, I'm looking to at least get over 15 goals and at least get more than 5 assists from the games that he's played.
Okay, let's put Eze on that plate with the amount of talent that's around him. What do you think his output would be? Across
all comps, playing what position?
Playing attacking midfield or even playing left wing on occasion. What do you on appearances? I would say I would judge around 20 to 30 at least, or same as
30 goals from Eze.
No, not appearances. I'm talking about
appearances. 20 to 30 appearances for Eze. How many goals do you think he'd get across 20 to 30 appearances? Bearing in mind, obviously, who we already have.
In this lineup with this squad, I think he can get 15 to 20. I really do. With this talent, I think he can get 15 to 20. That's how good I think he is.
Okay. I did say 15 goals, I think, was an expectation for Winery this season across all comps. Right.
Well, we'll see how it plays out. Yeah. But I think that turning their back on Eze is going to possibly, I wouldn't say wholeheartedly, but possibly cost Arsenal big time.
Okay. I agree on that sense. I think missing out on Eze is an error, and I just don't like the angle about Winery. I can't get on board with that. I just can't. But We're going to have to agree to disagree, Elliot, as we do. That's fine, but thank you for your call, man. I appreciate it.
No, one more thing. Third error was the Trossard signing. I don't think we can bring him left winger after this. Martinelli, there's been no signs. There's been no reaction from anyone. Maybe they got a thing, a card up their sleeve that hopefully he'll come back. But I pray for that within the next 2 weeks. I pray for a Rodrigo loan with option to buy, but it doesn't look likely. And those are the 3 mistakes. And quite simply, it has taken my 8 window to a 7 because you got to count the as the own goal. That's an own goal. Sorry.
Fair enough, man. All right, I'll catch you soon. Have a good day, man.
Thanks, Tom. I'm back at the gym. I'll see you soon.
Always, man. Always. Right, let's go to George, who I know was messaging me this morning asking you want to discuss this topic, so he gets his chance. So do, man. You good? You well?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, man. Just before I go in and have a chat, there's a lot of people in the queue. I'm going to give you a heads up now that I cannot guarantee all of you are going to get on this show. I start work at 9. There is going to be no way all of you get on. So just bear in mind and accept my apology now if I don't get you on the show. So just be aware of that, okay? Sorry, George. Go on. Tell me why you think this makes the window, if it is to end at this point, with no further business, but assuming we get some of those kind of surplus players out, why it would be a failure.
Because I look to what our expectations were before the window. I looked at the last couple of years in competing with the top teams, and I thought last summer really was the summer to go and get those ceiling raisers, and we didn't do it. So we reassessed this summer, and you think, okay, this is really the summer to go and do it. Now, on the back of losing Jorginho, Thomas Partey, you've got Tierney, Sterling. Who else left? I want to say Tavares left, and others. Marquinhos, in my opinion, because of how highly I rate Thomas Partey as a footballer, I want to put that out there for starters. Sure. As a footballer,
that's fine.
To me, Zubimendi is possibly an upgrade, but I don't think a ceiling raiser in comparison to Thomas Partey. I look at Norgard as a replacement for Jorginho. I look at Tomiyasu leaving and then Mosquera coming in as a replacement, and Sterling and Tierney, who both played on the wing for us last season, Madueke coming in as an upgrade on them.
Yeah.
So to me, the only real ceiling raiser, because it was so apparent that we needed number 9, was Gyokeres. And to me, to really go and win the title, only bringing in one ceiling raiser at this point of Arteta's project, it just is not good enough if you want to go and win the big things. And I think if the window was to end now, they've really let him down. On the back of your last caller, I'll actually look at the team that we are in direct competition with, and I look at what Man City have just done with Echeverri. They've sent him out on loan. Now, to me, I think Ethan Nwaneri is such a talent that you don't want to get rid of him at this point. But could he do with playing consistent game time on a loan? Potentially. And so to me, obviously not being able to get rid of the deadwood that we have, and you saw the 5 or 6 players who weren't in our squad at the weekend, not being able to do that at this point, I think has meant that we weren't able to go and bring in Eze, which is a massive shame because of the talent. So that's sort of my opinion where I sit at the moment.
If the argument around Nwaneri, as you put it, George, I think that's fair. The issue I took in the previous call was around kind of the idea of would chuck this talent away. If given, because that's how it was kind of being. It was felt at that time that Nwaneri's New Deal. This is the context around this for me, George. Is that I get the loan argument. The loan argument's a really good one for Nwaneri. The problem that we've got with the loan argument is that this isn't next summer. And what I mean by that is that this is the summer that we had to convince Ethan Nwaneri to sign his new deal. And to convince Ethan Nwaneri to sign that new deal, despite there being significant interest from Premier League and Champions League level clubs, we had to give him that new deal. But at the same time, and while there wasn't, I know there wasn't any kind of guarantees over game time, you've still got to have that show of that pathway. I think you've got to, if you're going to give Ethan Nwaneri that new deal, there's got to be an emphasis in those discussions around the pathway into the first team. and getting those opportunities at the same time. I'm not saying guarantees, so I don't think that was part of those discussions. But I'd be very surprised if in the summer where you've locked in that player to a new contract and there was real potential that might not have happened at some points based upon the interest that we saw rise significantly at that time in Eze particularly, that he could have gone, and in which case we would have pivoted to Eze. Since he's signed, that interest in Eze has clearly waned. That's diminished. I know there's been a lot of promises made by many online and a lot of faceless accounts that I think unfortunately people get sucked up into kind of following, but that's the reality. So I think the loan argument with Nwaneri is a good one, but I think there is an element of the contract discussions playing a part in why that maybe could not have happened this season, if that makes sense.
But do you not think a situation, if I look at, say, Chelsea, for example, and Loftus-Cheek, Tammy Abraham, Tomori, those types of players, Mason Mount, for example, potentially profiting on someone like Ethan Nwaneri. I think the first failure is letting his contract get to a point where that discussion has to happen.
Well, to be fair, youth contracts are different, so we didn't really have a choice.
That's true.
I would say, you can only sign a restricted length of contract at that age. Yeah.
But you can really ask the question, like, what is the opportunity cost of not doing business? It's a hard question to answer, right? But
sure, for sure.
To me, bringing in an Eze who what you're going to get with him in the Premier League, whether he's playing out on the left-hand side or as a left-sided number 8, number 10, etc., that output and that, I guess, ceiling raiser type profile will be there. Whereas with Ethan, he is extremely young. So I wouldn't want to put the pressure on someone like him. You know what I mean? I don't want to put that pressure on an 18-year-old or a Max Doman who's 15 years old. You know what I mean? I want to put that pressure on a 27-year-old who's already done it in the Premier League. So I sort of side with your previous guest in, would you sacrifice Ethan to bring in someone who can definitely help you when you win now? My heart says no, but my head is saying probably yes.
Can Arsenal win the title based on what they've done?
Can they? Yes, because we have a squad now which allows us, well, if our squad is fit and the signings that we've made so far, especially with their injury records, I'm not sure if you've looked at their injury records, but a lot of them have very, very good injury records. Touch table, everything will be okay in that respect. I think our big issue last season was the injuries, not necessarily the lack of quality in a left winger or a number 10 or a striker. So to me, yes, we can win it. But have we put ourselves in a situation where we are now favourites to win the title? I can't say yes.
Yeah, no. If you would say, will we win the title? I even if we'd have signed Eze, I wouldn't have said yes. It's not for me. He's not the difference between will we, won't we. For me, it's not. We wouldn't have done and that's more down to who we're going up against than what we could do necessarily in the market. Can Arsenal win the title? Yeah, I think of course. I honestly believe anyone who says no to that question, I just can't get on that headspace. Having seen what we've seen over the last 3 seasons, seen the 6 signings I said 5 earlier, the 6 signings we've made this summer, to turn around and say no, still categorically cannot win the league, I think that's incredibly pessimistic and unrealistic. But go on.
I don't disagree. But I do think that with the signings that we've made, some of the signings we've made this summer, there's an element of if. So, like, if Madueke comes in and we go out and do a left winger and a number 10, then Madueke is a great addition to the squad and a good signing. But if we don't do that, then there's a big problem there. And to me, this summer was a summer where I didn't want any ifs. I wanted certainties. And I look at even what Man United have done. And that Cunha and Mbeumo are almost certainties because of what they've done previously.
And they weren't the other day.
Well, I actually thought I played quite well. I wouldn't surprise me.
They didn't deliver.
Yeah, no. And another thing that I don't really pay attention to what the media say too often, because when we were playing really well and not winning things, the media have a lot to say. And now we don't play well and we're winning, then the media still have a lot to say. So to me, 3 points are more important than anything. And I think performances will come in time. So I'm not particularly worried. I just want more ceiling raisers. That's all I'm asking for. And I don't think I'm going to get that, which is disappointing.
Yeah. George, thank you for your points. I think you raised some really fair ones, man. And thank you for your call.
All the best. Take care,
Cheers,
mate.
man. Lovely stuff. Dapper Mo is up next on my list. How you doing, man? You good? You well? Take yourself off mute, and we'll be able to hear you.
Hello. I wasn't.
How you doing, man? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. How you doing, Tom?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Tell me why, if this is it, 6 signings in, 4 players renewed this summer is a failure.
I think personally, from my side, very similar to the view the last caller had. It's more around like taking control of the situation. And first of all, this is not my views. This is actually from our manager.
Yep.
You know, during the last game of pre-season, I think it was a the post-match kind of call he had, and he basically said that we're still short. He made it very clear. He said, "Oh, we're still short. We have to, players have to move on."
He said that after the Spurs game, did he?
Yeah, I think was it.
I thought he said it before we confirmed Mosquera and Gyokeres. That's what that's when I thought he said it.
I mean, those players, he would have known that they were joining, right? I know Arteta doesn't typically say,
He's also quite very well media trained.
Exactly. So he would have known that they were joining, but from his side, he said we're still short. So from him saying we're still short, and he did mention, we still have a few players to leave. Even though those players haven't left yet, he still mentioned we still need a few players to leave the club. That to me says the manager is not happy with the squad yet. Right, he's still not happy with the squad. I understand that was prior to Madueke coming back from his holiday, but even at that stage, I think even as fans, we know. So if we know, and obviously our football knowledge doesn't compare to Arteta's in any capacity. However, I think deep down he knows what he needs as a club, and to build out his team as well. So for him to say we're still short, I definitely agree from that point of view that we need at least one more. I'm not a fan of, getting 2 more attackers in because we don't have the squad capacity. Even the other day when we played United, we had like 8 players out, you mentioned. Because I'm not even saying the guys on that we're going to sell. It's more around the Norgards. He wasn't there. He wasn't on the team. Dowman wasn't on the squad. And you can arguably say if we sign one more player without moving on the key, like, obviously, Trossard's going to stay now, but I think personally we need to get rid of Martinelli, and like the other last 2 callers, Nwaneri definitely needs to go on loan. That's my opinion. I think he needs to go on loan, not just from the perspective of we need to get in a win now player. Is more for his development as well. I don't think personally he's going to play as many games this season as we expect him to play. The reason for that being, just given on Arteta's history, the younger players, he doesn't trust them in the middle. And if Nwaneri is saying that he wants to play in the midfield, I think Arteta is going to spend a lot of time with him on the training ground to get him ready to play that position, because that is a very prominent position which Arteta only trusts senior players to play. I remember when I think Odegaard was out, he actually brought in Trossard to play in that position instead of Nwaneri, and then he pushed that Nwaneri to the wide.
Saka.
Exactly. And I think he's going to do the same with Dowman, even though potentially I think I see Dowman's future as being more of a central player.
Agreed.
Arteta is going to push him out to the wing. Once he learns the trade properly and he builds up confidence, he's going to slowly maybe introduce him to back up Odegaard in the future. So I think rather than leaving him to rot on the bench, he should have gone out on loan and played, 30 plus games, somewhere where he's actually getting proper minutes in and experience in that central role. That's just my opinion.
No, I agree a lot with what you said. I'll do a little fact check on the short thing. The press conference before the Tottenham game in pre-season, he was asked the question, last week you mentioned you felt you were short. So this is obviously before the Spurs game. He said, last week you mentioned you felt you were short in squad depth. With the announcement of Gyokeres, do you still feel that sentiment? Secondly, what more is still needed if you feel that way? He said, I said that I was extremely happy with the way that we have approached the window and how aggressive we have been. There's still a long period still with the window open. So far, we are very happy with what we have achieved and make sure at the end of the window, we continue to be super happy. So he's not saying we're short at that point, but I think he's definitely hinting that we want to be super happy by the end of the window, in the sense that there's still a long period with the window open and we want to be super happy when it ends. I would say that's a hint towards he wants one more at least. You know,
I would definitely agree, and I guess you can, if I'm just being like the devil's advocate here, you can actually look at it the other way, that he doesn't want to lose any key players at the same time, right? He wants to be happy in terms of, you know, renewing contracts, not losing anyone, but I think more hinting towards, or probably more edging towards, he definitely wants one more player in. Now, I think you asked the question to, I think it was Elliot, you asked it to, who that one player is. It's very difficult at this moment because obviously Rodrigo, I think his wage demands are way too high. And it looked like Man City were going to come in for him if they managed to sell Savinho. I think Tottenham are backing away from the Savinho deal just because it's a bit too expensive for them.
Yeah.
And with
60-70 million
Lookman,
is crazy.
It's ridiculous for Savinho. I'm so sorry. I know City are a really good selling.
He's all right. He's an all right winger, Savinho. Like, one goal last season does not make 60 to 70 million euros.
I think they're selling him based on potential, right? That's probably what City are looking at, and they do sell well. And based on what they've done over the last couple of years, they deserve to be a good selling club because their players are top quality. However, the other option really, because obviously Rafael Leao, I'm not a big fan, and it doesn't look like he's going to leave Milan, and thankfully. Lookman, again, personally, he's been in the Premier League, several clubs. He's shining in Italy at the moment, but then again, it's the Italian league. If we're being serious, if you've had 3 or 4 clubs in the Premier League and it hasn't worked out, why should we take a chance and spend a lot of money? I think fans just want a shiny new toy, but if you look at the stats, you know, look at the history, I don't think he's the solution personally. And he has a very similar play style, correct me if I'm wrong, to Trossard. That's how I see him. He obviously he's a bit faster because, you know, he's younger than Trossard, but their play style, that kind of wide inside forward type of play style, very similar to Trossard. So I think from the club's perspective, if we have Trossard, very similar to Lookman, Trossard's doing it in the Premier League. He's scoring, 15, 20 goals, a couple seasons ago. Why should we go for...
Who is it for you? Just quick, because I'm conscious of the time. I want to try and get at least 2 more callers on.
For me...
Who was it? Realistically, because I don't, by the way, and I don't think Rodrigo is realistic, personally.
Me personally, what I would do, and this may be very controversial because I know fans love Martinelli, but we can, I know Rodrigo is not realistic, but we can get a Rodrigo, but I think Martinelli would need to leave.
And I just don't see anyone coming in and paying the money for him, mate. I just don't.
It's difficult. It might be like a loan with an obligation to buy.
People are saying Semenyo, he signed a new deal at the start of the summer, guys, so he's going nowhere.
I mean, unless someone like Bayern Munich, I know they obviously got Luis Diaz, right? But they lost Sane and they lost Coleman, right? And obviously Musiala is injured as well, I think. And obviously Muller retired too. So I think that was the more realistic option. And I saw yesterday, I don't know how reliable the source is, they actually, they were in for Garnacho as well, but he only wants Chelsea. So that just tells me that they want one more player, one more wide forward. So again, that could be an option for Martinelli because I think his Arsenal career is over, in my opinion, personally. Yeah,
I struggle seeing him proving that point wrong. I struggle seeing him prove that point wrong, but I hope, and I think you do as well. But we hope that he does. We hope.
I want it to be a big season for him because I love Martinelli. I want him to be a big season, but I think if you look at his stats, we end up praising his defensive work rate over what he does going forward, which is the wrong view for an attacking player, in my opinion. But anyways, let's see what happens.
Thank you, Mo. I really appreciate your time and your call.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Enjoy the rest of your day, man. See you later. Like I said, I'm going to try and get 2 more on, which on my list is going to be Daniel and John. So I'm sorry, everybody else, that I can't squeeze you onto today's show. But Daniel and John are going to be our last 2 callers. So I don't want to waste more of your time while you're sitting there patiently. But I do apologise that we can't squeeze. I've just got work today. So I've only got so much time left. John's going to be first, then we'll finish the show with Dan. How you doing, John? You good, you well?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Not bad, mate. Not bad. So I'll ask you the question I've asked everyone else. After 6 signings, 4 contract renewals, potentially with Trossard, why is this summer a failure?
I'm going to answer a different question. You said whether we can win the league.
That's not how this works.
Sorry. But for me, I don't think we'll win the league just because when I looked at the teams, Man City and Liverpool, we've got an over-reliance on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
And when I watched Liverpool the other night, even though they played poorly at times and I thought they were vulnerable, they will strengthen in the back and in midfield, I reckon. Once they've done that, the way they attack, the spread of their play, where they go out to the left, out to Gakpo, or they go out to Salah, or they could go out to Ekitike, the spread's better. And it's the same with Man City. Although Dorgu, I don't think he's the greatest winger in the world, he causes chaos. Martinelli is like Theo Walcott of old. As soon as you front him up, he has no idea on how to take on his fullback, and he immediately cuts back. And since we got rid of Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus has been injured, we've not had a little diamond on that side to enable him to be able to get into space and get going. And I think that's been a fault of Arteta and of the coaches, that they've not addressed that side of it. See, for me, I think if we went and got Eze, and I think Elliot missed the point on this, it's not about how many goals and assists Eze will get. It's about the chaos that he will cause. And I think if you got him, you could drop Rice back into midfield for Zubimendi if Zubimendi needed to come off, or vice versa. And you could put Eze into that left half space. You could even then put Madueke out onto the left if you needed to, and still keep Martinelli, because I think he does offer stuff in terms of his defensive play, and he does have that quickness on transition, whereas Trossard doesn't. So, but I think he gives you that element of chaos that if you had him on the left side, you had Odegaard on the right, we can then start doing the spread a bit better on the wings. At the moment, if we keep it too right side bias, we're too predictable. And I think one of the Champions League managers last year actually said this, that they knew what Arsenal were like, where they favoured and they doubled up that whole right-hand side and forced us over to the left, where they knew we weren't as strong. So every time Martinelli got the ball, they just had to front him up, and that caused the problem. So for me, as much as what I love Trossard, and I really do, because I think his goals and assists are brilliant, he doesn't have the legs of Martinelli. He needs support. Youth of Martinelli.
Trossard's better in those games where we're camped outside the opposition's box, where you don't have to have him running in behind. Whereas Martinelli is better in transition. But even then, when we do get into those situations, the United game was a great example. His runs were quite poor. When he got into dangerous positions, his shot was weak. He had that kind of really tame shot that just kind of was caught by Bayindir. He struggles, as you say, to take his man on. And I just think if that was a more direct, technically gifted winger, and I don't think that's Eze necessarily. I don't necessarily think Eze is that
I wouldn't put him out there. I wouldn't put Eze out there. I think Eze is more that the left sort of 8 that you could put in there. You could drop if you was in a game like what we was at the weekend, and say you wanted just to do a quick transition on a break. You could put Rice back into midfield, or keep Zubimendi on, take Rice off, put Eze in there, and then you got a quick transition. And I think he's ball, and I've seen him on the different knock, the way he gives like the balls off to Mateta and so forth. He's very quick and decisive with his balls. So it gives Martinelli, if he's got space to run into, he's like Walcott. If he's got space to run into, he's great. If he hasn't got space to run into, he's basically null and void, really, Martinelli. So, but the thing is, there's a lack of real top quality left wingers. I think Nico Williams was using people to get himself a better contract. I'm very not convinced on Rodrigo. I think people are more looking at the name and the fact he's Brazil and he plays.
He's good. Like, don't get me wrong. When I say he's so overrated, I don't mean that in a disparaging way about Rodrigo, but he's not €100 million player. Like, he just isn't, and he's not. For me, he isn't the guy that if you're feeling. If I just can't get on board with the idea that your mind about Arsenal's chances of winning the title go from can't win to can't win if you sign Rodrigo. I don't think he's that transformative of a player. No.
I don't think he's strong enough. And the thing is, I saw Madueke at the weekend. I think he's a bit like Madueke. They haven't got the defensive side. So as soon as we put Madueke on, that left side become a lot more attacking for United. So United went down that side a lot more.
Yeah.
Whereas Martinelli's there, he gives you that stability. My other point is, I think I'm getting fed up where we're always 1 or 2 players away from winning the league. I think we get to ourselves to a point, and I think we're there. We just need this 1 or 2 players, and we're right on it. And I think we're going to smash the league. And I think everyone knows the left side's been a problem. And whereas now, other clubs now are like using loopholes. And as one of my friends said, a loophole is not cheating because it's legal when you're not getting no points taken off of you, right? So teams are like selling their women's clubs to themselves. They're getting around FFP. They're managing to get around FIFA Fair Play. So while we're playing like checkers, they're all playing chess, and they're always like one step ahead of us. And as much as what I'd like to do it in the right way, it's not going to be that way. So sometimes you've got to fight fire with fire, and you've got to go for it. And you just got to say, well, sorry, if they're going to sell their women's team, let's do it. Let's get the money in the bank. Let's get on the right side of FIFA. Let's get on the right side of the Premier League. And let's invest where we need to invest now. At the moment, to lose Eze to Tottenham for the sake of the fact that we can't get rid of Vieira and we can't get rid of Trossard or we can't get rid of Kiwior. And I don't reckon we should be getting rid of Kiwior because I like Kiwior.
Yeah, I agree with you,
Yeah, I just think it's really bad. And I understand why they're looking for the good money, because when you see a left winger who's 18 from Liverpool going to Brentford for 25 million, I'd be asking for 25 million for Vieira as well.
Yeah,
right, and rightly so.
Yeah,
but I think our reputation is going before us in sales.
And Berta's got that as well, John, where he's just come in. He needs to have a strong first summer with that rep to be like, things aren't going to be like they were before with Edu and selling. This is me now. This is how I sell players, and I get maximum value. You know, he got the money back from Marquinhos that we paid effectively. Tavares was a deal that was already pre-obligated, so it didn't matter. If Arsenal can get 20 million plus of Vieira, I think they would have done a good deal. I think if they can get close to 15 for Zinchenko, they would have done a good deal with a year left on his contract. If they can get 10 million plus for Reece Nelson, again, there's not long left on his deal. If they can get 10 million for Albert Sambi Lokonga, if they can get a few million quid for Carl Hine, you know, these aren't exactly like marquee sales that we're trying to get, but he needs a good sales window, and he needs to stand firm on the valuation. I mean, we got 30 million for Nketiah last summer, and with all due respect to Nketiah, that is a lot of money for him.
Yeah, exactly. But I also think as well, if you look at like what Elliot was saying earlier, we've got a very big right side bias. So he's talking about Nwaneri, Dowman, they're all right-sided players.
They are, yeah.
Where's our left-sided players coming?
Well, I guess we're going to see with Madueke. I'm only conscious of the time as well, John. I'm conscious to see Madueke and because at the moment he's written off. Like the majority of Arsenal fans, I feel, have written off. I think he's a good player.
I think he's a good.
But I think they've written off the idea, not him individually. I think he's been written off in the sense that what we've done in the attacking lineup is not enough, and Madueke is not enough with Gyokeres for what we needed to do this summer. And as a result, he is being written off. And
I think he was a good backup for Saka. I don't think he's our left winger. That's my thing with that. I think that's
what we're going to find out. I agree with you, but
I think we should have gone for Semenyo myself before he signed his contract, because I think I said this last time when I've been on one of your calls. I really like Semenyo. I think he offers a lot because he can come in the middle and he can go hug the left hand side.
But I know you're saying that like, you know, I know you did come on a show, but it's retrospective, I think, for a lot of Arsenal fans. I've seen Semenyo's name pop up in this chat box today more than I have in every other show, I think, combined prior to those 2 goals he scored against Liverpool.
And I mean that since last year.
I know you did, but I'm saying in general, the broad context of around the Semenyo kind of hype now, I've seen more of his name in my chat box today than every other chat box we've done combined over the summer. And I think that's just kind of the way in which it goes. But John, I'm going to say goodbye because I've got one more caller and I've got to start work shortly. So, but thank you, man. I appreciate your time.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Thanks, John. Daniel's the last caller. How you doing, man? You good, Joel?
Yeah, good, thanks. Apologies for the bed hair this morning.
It's all right, man. It's also like your internet connection means it's slightly frozen on you, so we're just constantly looking at your hair. But you're fine. You're moving now. We've got you in HD. Tell me, man, why with this, if this is this window a failure?
Yeah, I think for me, pretty similar point to what John said a minute ago. But you know, if you asked me 5 or 6 weeks ago, I praised the Madueke signing, and I praised it very much on the understanding that he was the third attacker signing.
Yeah,
and that he was coming in as the Saka backup. He can play on the left on occasion if we have an injury crisis, but you know, more aimed at that, and then we'd get a left winger as well. And the other thing for me is, I think I don't really agree with the profiling of Eze.
Okay,
and you know, I understand we don't want to block Ethan's pathway, and we kind of have him as that right-sided attacker. Odegaard back up again, can play on the wing on occasion. But I think Eze would go a long way to solving the left-hand side issues. You can kind of play him as a winger in the big games, and then, like Leeds this weekend when we've got a low block, you'd probably play him almost as a left 8 with another winger outside him. And just, choosing Madueke instead of Eze doesn't make sense to me.
I still don't see it like that. The way in which I kind of look at the window as it has transpired is that Arsenal have built their squad so that they have guaranteed, based upon the players that exist as and when, 2 players in every single position. And they've succeeded in that. They currently have 2 players in every single position. If we'd have signed Eze before, say, signing Madueke, which, I think most Arsenal fans probably would have preferred, just in isolation. If we'd have signed Eze instead of Madueke, what would have been the case was that we had the idea that Waneri would cover the right-hand side for Saka if he wasn't there, that you'd have Eze and Odegaard at the 10 and the current 2 left wingers. Reality is that they don't see Waneri as a right winger. While he had some good moments there last season, I'll be very blunt and honest. I don't see him as a successful long-term right-wing option, Waneri. I see him as a central player, and clearly the club do as well. There were a number of games last season, and it's really early in his career, but there were several appearances he had on the right that did leave much to be desired, because I don't think that's his best role. And I think he's shown that many, many times that he's more impactful centrally. And I think that they went for the Madueke signing, knowing that that would guarantee them 2 senior options on the right. They'd have Odegaard and then a more naturally positioned Waneri behind him. Obviously, knowing as well you've got Dalman coming through. Arteta has referenced players like Mikel Merino as well, of course, whether you agree with that or not. He has referenced him as one of those players that could operate in midfield in a more attacking sense. And then you've got Martinelli and Trossard. I would think that the plan would have been, if successfully they had moved more players on by this point, they would have moved for an Eze or a player that can operate more so on the left, be that as a winger or as a left 8 or whatever. That's where I see the window going. They moved for Madueke to guarantee 2 senior options on the right, or having 2 senior options on the left, and having Odegaard and Waneri for the middle. And had they have moved on players, potentially a Trossard, potentially a Martinelli, but I think more so your Vieiras, your Nelsons, your Zinchenkos, etc., it would have given them the financial freedom from UEFA's FFP to add that extra attacker. And so far, with 2 weeks left of the window, that's not happened. And so they've not made that move. That's how I see it. That's how I personally see how the window's gone.
Yeah, I do understand the logic behind it. And another point I'd make is I had some quick back of an envelope maths at the weekend, and we had well over 500,000 per week in wages that didn't even make the squad.
Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it? Absolutely crazy.
So, I can understand why the Cronkies are probably not keen to add more numbers to that without more outgoings.
It wasn't just that; it was £180 million worth of on transfer fees of players that weren't involved at Man United.
Yeah. So I just think, and I do get the logic behind the 2 players for every position, but I just think when we're limited on how much we can spend, and when we're limited on how many players we can bring in before making sales, I think we should have gone down the route of prioritizing players that we think can raise the starting 11. And for me, I do think even if they don't see this as his best position, I do think Eze would be our best left winger from day one.
I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree with that point. And I've been saying it all summer. For me, even though he's not seen by the club as a left-sided player in terms of like a wide option, they see him more as a central figure. If he was to sign for Arsenal, he would be the starting left winger. The reality is that they felt that they had to go and get the depth for Saka as a primary, and they see, obviously Arteta sees it as a bonus that he can play and can operate him on the left as well, as we're seeing. But the fact that there wasn't the big offers that came in, despite there being, even recently there was Bayern Munich, interest in Trossard, but it wasn't a permanent move. It was kind of, I think, more so seen as maybe a loan. But when it comes to kind of those, like Martinelli in particular, there's been no interest in him for the money that Arsenal would want. And so far, they have been unsuccessful in getting the fees they want for the players that they are willing to move on, that would have given them the freedom maybe to then move at this point for Eze. And Eze has been very patient. He's been very patient. You know, he's been very open to this move for Arsenal for a while when it seemed like, you know, a move could happen and they had to kind of prep the deal if Nwaneri wasn't to renew. So there was a lot of unofficial discussions that went on, and that sells you, as a player. And then you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. And there's another club who happen to be Tottenham, which is annoying, basically saying they'll move heaven and earth to sign you. That becomes a really attractive thing. So we're going to have to swallow a bitter pill. I'll finish this call the same way I finished the others, Daniel. Based upon what Arsenal have done and the squad they have, can they win the title?
We can. Everything needs to go right. But remember, the nucleus of this squad already had 2 great title challenges, particularly the one 2 seasons ago. And, last year, all things considered, with the injuries and the red cards, we still put up a pretty good fight. I think we can do it. I don't think we're favourites, but I give us every chance.
Would we have been favourites if we signed Eze?
I still don't think so, just based off of Liverpool's window. But I think I would have probably had us a good bit closer to them than I do.
Would you put us above City? I mean, do you put us above City now? Or?
I do. But part of that's because there's a bit of copium in me that thinks they're going to get a points deduction still.
Fair enough, man. I rate that. Daniel, what a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for your call, man, and your patience.
Thank you. Have a good day, guys.
You too, mate. And a big thank you to all our callers and all those that didn't get on as well. Again, I am so sorry that I couldn't get all of you. I've already gone 10 minutes over than I was supposed to. So thank you to all of you that were patient, those that came on and those that unfortunately we couldn't get on. So yeah, that's kind of, I think that the sense is, now. And I think that, I know that I'm going to get a lot of questions from people saying, ask Arteta about Eze. You know what he does when you ask him about anyone that doesn't play for Arsenal. So it's a little bit of an interesting one that to how you phrase it. I know James put a question, but Nicholas put a question to him last weekend about that position. And he said, do you feel like you have enough with the players that you have? And he effectively said, yeah. Like he said, yes. Like I feel like with the players we have enough there in attacking midfield. So they kind of give you a sense of what he thought. The wage increase is the thing for me that is making this a really bitter pill to swallow, more so. If this is the team that goes into the season, I think Arsenal have got a great chance. I think they've got a much better chance than they had at the start of last season. I think that's factual. Arsenal have a better chance with the squad they have now of winning a title than they did at the start of the 24-5 season. The 25-6 squad is better, much better than the 4-5 squad was. So by that measure, we've done a good job. The problem is that the likes of Liverpool and City have got great chances as well. And there's this sense that we had to go and get that last signing, that one extra wild card, maverick, chaos factor that just gave Arsenal something extra. And if this is it, and then this is where things end, I can't help but see a window that I personally see as a good window, not ending without a tinge of frustration and disappointment and a sense of incompletion. That's how I would feel about it. But there is still 2 weeks left of the window. We will wait and see what happens. Anything's possible. Thank you so much for listening, people. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the vast majority of you that kept it clean in the chat box. There's always a couple of morons, but thank you to the vast majority of you that have been brilliant. Even if you not even agreed with what I've said, that's the whole point of football. We have differing points of view. We have different points of view on the show. And the point is we have an honest, frank, blunt, sometimes discussion about things. So thank you to you all. Do drop a like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new. And of course, as always, up the Arsenal. I've pressed the button. Why has it not done it? I've pressed... StreamYard's always trying to sabotage me. Unbelievable.